All right, guys, we're going to get going. Welcome to the Campfire. I'm just another participant who's sitting in the chair here. I volunteered to kind of moderate or be part of the leading of the group. The topic we selected was diversify your markets and grow internationally. Given what's going on in the world right now, it's even more apt, I think. We have the challenges, of course, of restrictive travel and trade, but also key industries that aerospace that affect composites are suffering. So people are looking to new market sectors to diversify and perhaps to new marketplaces abroad into other countries, whether it's from Europe into the US or vice versa, or just into new countries within Europe, for example. So what I'm going to do is you have to get the free plug in. So I'm going to show you a little slide about a 1-minute video of who I am, and that might just give some ideas to people as well. And then I have some suggestions after that, really, of topics to talk about. Why should we diversify? You know, what do we got to think about? So let's go. If it works. So let me see now. Okay, so little video here. Let's see if this works. So that's the free plug out of the way. So really, that's what I do. My background is business development, is what I do with manufacturers, particularly into the European advanced technology sector, principally aerospace and other areas that use a lot of composites. So the things that I've sold and sell include things like tooling, chemicals, surface treatment products, elastomers, rubbers, all sorts of consumables and even hardware that are used in the manufacturing of composites or also of other advanced materials like titanium alloys and so on in the marketplace. So that's my little bit about my background. I'm Irish, as you can possibly spot by my accent. I'm based here in Ireland, a little bit more this year than normal. Normally I travel at least 50% of the time around Europe. I speak French and German and Spanish, which is handy and very enjoyable for what I do for a living, for connecting into new markets. And I find that very interesting, as well as being very important for what I do. Let's just see what we can do. One question I have for everybody, and I'm going to look back at the chats as we go along later on. I suppose if you're listening in today, you're interested in the topic of diversifying and possibly growing internationally into new markets, new sectors. So one question I suppose everybody has to ask themselves as a business owner or as a manager of a territory is, well, what would it mean to you or to your business if you were to be able to internationalize your business with a sustainable approach? Those last two words are very important to me in any work that I do with my clients as well. So what would it mean for you? How would it change? How would it change your business, your ambitions, your possibilities? So that's just food for thought, and really people can jump in a minute and we'll start unmuting mics and so on. But that's a key question I think you have to consider when you're looking at this topic. So I suppose throwing out the typical things that popped into my head when I sat down and thought about this before I sit here today, were the 8 key reasons that I think of if you want to expand internationally. One, of course, obvious, increase your revenue potential by going into new markets, new territories. Also, you might enter new markets. So, you know, when you go into a new market, whether it's from the US to Canada or to Europe or from France to Germany or to the UK or whichever way you're going, there's new applications for the technology, for the know-how that you have that can draw you into new opportunities, which later on you can use in your home market, your domestic market. So it can be a real win-win. And of course, you're going to look at getting a new customer base because you're expanding. And that expansion is going to allow you to diversify. Diversifying in business is always good. Don't have all your eggs in one basket, either geographically or by sector. Those of us who are very active in the aerospace sector right now, wherever you are in the world, that's a very tough place to be. And it's a real example of how it's important to have a couple of different strands to what you do and to be exposed into different market sectors, be that for composite applications in medical or automotive or consumer products. I see somebody listening in here today from marine and so on. And of course, if you're going to go international, you're going to get greater access to different and new talent. And hopefully by doing that and applying your technology and your offerings successfully, that's going to gain you competitive advantage. And that can be applied in your new markets, but also in your home market. And of course, by doing this, it's going to increase your company's reputation. The more you internationalize, the more impressive a company you are, the more respected you are. Many companies I've worked with over the years, a key part and reason of becoming more international is not just to diversify, but to increase their company's reputation, because reputation has a value for your company. If for some reason you're looking to expand, to raise finance, to sell, being more international is a very, very healthy and positive thing to do, and good for your long-term sustainability of your business. Last one there in that slide, there's about cost savings. The more you grow your business, the more you're exposed to new sources perhaps and ways of doing business, that's going to provide opportunities for cost savings as well. So that's just one slide about that. Other advantages that I thought of after, of course, you've got existing technology, you have existing products. By going into new markets, you get that opportunity of extending the life of those existing products or services, whatever those may be, whether you're on the design side, the manufacturing side, and so on. So that's a very positive thing. It's a relatively low cost way with higher profit margin gains more quickly than necessarily having to create new products for new markets. If you have existing products for new markets, that's great. Of course, you're going to reduce your dependence on your domestic market, on the sector that you've principally been active in or the territory you've principally been active in until now. Reduce that dependence, that's healthy. And perhaps if you have a product perhaps which is cyclical, whether that's seasonal, think of somebody making composite kayaks or something like that. If you can expand into territories where they're going from northern hemisphere to southern hemisphere, or whatever that may be, or applications like that, you have that advantage of smoothing out your business cycle and of utilizing spare capacity when you have that excess capacity at the time of year you're normally not busy in your home market. And of course, you're going to, as we say, get a chance to exploit your technology and the know-how you have and try and apply that successfully and carefully as you go into new sectors and into new foreign markets as well. But before you do all that, really, I suppose there's some things that we have to ask ourselves and we should do if we're forming a good international business plan and deciding how to go and become more international or go into different sectors. And one of the key ones, of course, is, well, ask yourself the question, will you simply be a player in that new market, that new territory you enter? You're just one of the crowd, or can you emerge a winner? So that's focusing in on what is it that's unique about your product offering, the way you go to market, the skills you have as a team, or a team that you expand with partners in the foreign countries. What could make you a winner or a real player in that marketplace? So to do that, you have to really understand, well, what can your company do better than the competitors in the new market? So there are obviously, there's a need being met by somebody in that market that you're trying to enter. So what are they doing? And what are you doing differently? And what could you do to add value, to be more competitive, to be smarter, to provide a solution that the other competitors aren't? And then you have to think about things like, well, you have strategic assets, like whether that's human resources, skills, technology, process, or a combination of all of those. If you don't put that same combination together in some way and apply it to your new markets, chances are you won't be as successful as you'd like to be, or you may fail. So I often say to companies I'm working with, well, what's made you successful in that sector in the US or in France, wherever your home market is? Well, think about the steps that got you to where you are now. That didn't happen overnight. So we have to find a way of trying to do that as quickly and as cost effectively as we can in the new markets, or particularly in the new sectors if we're trying to draw from aerospace into automotive or into marine and so on, or consumer. So all those things lead us to ask questions like, can we catch up? Can we leapfrog that competition that's there? Outsmart the way that they're trying to present in the marketplace so you get market share. And of course, is your company going to be ready? How are you going to support going into a new sector or into a new market? Who's going to respond in an organized way into managing that market sector that you're diversifying into, or into those foreign markets that you haven't been dealing with before? Have you got it within your own team? Do you need outside resources? How are you going to manage those outside resources, whether it's business partners like myself, Eurolink, or it's agents or distributors who you're managing those markets? And one thing I learned very early on, my history goes back to different industries. I was in the Irish whiskey business when I first came out of college many years ago. And one of the first things I learned from some fantastic managers, and we were exporting to nearly 100 markets in the world at that time, was distributor management. And one of my first bosses always said, the key thing in succeeding in a new market is to get a disproportionate and unfair, a disproportionate share of mind compared to the share of the wallet of your new customer or your new distributor. And that means you got to work. You got to be that positive pain in the ass for those new markets, those new customers, to get that disproportionate share of their attention. They're busy, they're successful with other products and with other suppliers. So you have to win that. And that takes time, that takes effort, that takes commitment. That's really, really important. So is your company organized to do that? How will you do that if you don't have that internal resource, or how would you add it? So that's all the things you have to think about, I think, or some of the things you have to think about, I should say. So really some positive steps and important steps are within your company, big or small, you need to establish some key person who's a global team leader for that expansion into the new sector, into the new countries. Make sure your products are ready. Key things like norms and industry norms and certifications and approvals have to be considered going into new countries or into new sectors, into marine or aerospace or automotive. So is your company ready for that? What are the steps you need to take? Maybe you down select a few key markets where you can do that more quickly and more cost effectively than trying to do everything at the same time. So be very, very specific. And then that allows you to decide on your go-to market. And then it's time to dive in and enjoy, hopefully, and reap the rewards of doing that. So how would I do it? This is a little bit of my experience. I tried to capture in one next last chart before I really open it to whoever's listening here. To ask me questions or give your input to everybody else. Here's a little process chart I put together, a typical process of how I would recommend how I often go to market for products that I'm selling internationally or into new sectors. First of all, the obvious, you have to identify the market opportunities by sectors, and that could be something as broad as composites in Europe or in the US, or it could be as narrow as composites in aerospace or marine or automation or whatever it may be, and then obviously decide the territories you're going to do that in. So what can you cope? Where is the opportunity? Where is it most attractive? Where do you offer the best opportunity to succeed and be profitable? Building your local awareness then is the next step. These are things like we're all doing here today. We're all at CAMX. We're networking, very important. Have friends as many places as you can. So do events, visit the sites, go and look for information from the people you would like to do business with. It's a key way of selling for the first time, especially in a busy, crowded marketplace. Go and ask for the input of the people you would like to do business with. Respect their processes, respect their knowledge of the supply chain and what's missing maybe from that. So go and see customers, go and be in events. If you're in the US market, there are fantastic facilities like the US Commercial Service to help you do some of these things if you don't do it on your own. But you got to get out there. When you're out there, then you're, say, sitting at a show like Jana, you're from JEC in Paris. If you're from the US and you're going to the JEC for the first time, a really important thing is to be able to use those opportunities or market visits to find and screen and manage those in-market partners that you're going to have, whether they're salespeople of your own or distributors or end users of your product or integrators of your offering into their offering. So you got to find them, manage them, screen them, decide on the best ones, have a criteria before you randomly accept who walks up to you, of course. And then hopefully you've been as successful as you'd anticipated. You've chosen a key market or markets, and that means you need to put some people in place. So find those, use good partners who have connections there to do that. So something I do with some of my clients as well, but it's really important to have If not your own in-market personnel, at least somebody who can manage that for you and with you. And then from there, hopefully you're up and running, you have partners, you have some sort of a network in place, representation. The key thing then really becomes being proactive, getting that extra share of wallet, of time of your new partners and your new customers. So support them, look at the partners' needs, look at their end users and customers' needs, go in for high-level key meetings, be seen in the market at the right times, get involved in leading and pushing global or transnational projects for, say, automotive or aerospace or marine, to make sure you have that standard, that you have that license to sell, that then you'll have far more interested and more numerous partners looking to do business with you and for you if you manage to make sure you have all the right approvals, all the right opportunities to sell your product offering. Communicate it and be proactive in that regard. So I've spoken too much probably already, so I'm going to really just kind of stop there, and I'll slip back to this slide for a second maybe and see if people want to talk about that. So I'm not sure, Brianna, I know from the organizer there, you're sitting in. If you want to unmute people, or if people want to unmute themselves, please do, or ask within the chat box as well. We have about 10 minutes left, I think. So let me see what's going on in the chat box. Okay. One question I would have for people, I suppose, is, I'm asking people to share their own experiences here really, is what has been the biggest market success, new market success you've had, and why? What made that work? Or if you're brave enough to admit it, what was the biggest mistake you made going into a new sector? Hey, Raymond, thanks for your comment. While people are thinking about that, I have a little story going back some years ago when I was in the export market with Irish whiskies of all things. Very big market in the world, worth billions of euros. And one of my first bosses was a great guy, spoke no foreign languages. So he turned to me and he said, Joe, we're sending you to live in Spain. You're going to be implanted in our distribution network over there. You're going to represent us like an ambassador and make sure they spend time with us. And he said, but you've got to figure out one thing for me. I seem to have caused some offense to the chairman of the large corporation, which was in charge of the brand in that market in Spain and some other countries in Southern Europe. So he told me this story. And for Christmas, he had decided it'd be a great idea as one chairman to send the other chairman in Spain a little book that he found very interesting. The book was a well-known business culture book called Mind Your Manners. So the idea of it was it told you how to do business or what to look out for in different countries, whether you're going to Africa or America or Asia or from Ireland to Spain. So the chairman of the Spanish company got this book, didn't speak English, no more than John spoke Spanish, asked one of his team to quickly translate what the title of the book was. And they translated very firmly, Mind Your Manners. So this caused great offense to this gentleman, who was a very proud gentleman. And it took probably about a year or two to repair the damage in the relationships of something that was meant in a very positive way. So it was a simple slip, but it's amazing how simple little things can catch you when you go into a new market sometimes. You don't appreciate the cultural difference, the cultural interpretation of something as much as the language, the lost in translation. So that was funny. We eventually got the two guys back in a great relationship and very successful. So I thought I'd share that one. So let me have a quick look here. So I can see a question here. How does a small business successfully navigate different standards by country? And oft talked about IP, trade, and security concerns are more of a challenge in current times. Very good question. It's a real challenge for what we call in Europe an SME, or a PME as the French call it. A small company doesn't have the same resources. So that's a great example of where you go to your trade organization, you go to SAMPI, you go to one of the standards committees. I'm involved myself with some of the SAE committees on things like additive manufacturings and chemicals, topics that interest me. But to go to those and find out what is the standard, what's a cost-effective way to learn from your peers in a non-competitive way? What's the standard I need to meet? What paperwork do I need to fill in to make sure that I comply as I export that product and that it's allowed to be used in France or in automotive or in marine or consumer, whatever that standard may be. So They are difficult. So as a small company, it's even more important that you select your markets carefully and that you reduce the number of new markets at a time that you do that to. But I find going to peer networks, even CAMX is a great example where you can ask other people these questions. But there are always a standards authority. Fortunately, within Europe, within the US, there's a standard, and usually that doesn't really differ between the states or in Europe between the different countries. So that's an important way. Look at the European standards, ask your local US commercial service perhaps to point you in the right direction of somebody who knows about your sector. So that would be one approach I would recommend. I hope that answers your question, Andrew.
Yes, thanks.
All right. So Mata, you're from Airborne, and you were telling me before the call, Campfire started officially, that you're in automation. So you have a lot in aerospace, as I know. You're looking at other sectors. What sectors are you looking to get into, and why do you think you would be successful in other sectors, and what barriers do you see? And by the way, to Linda, while we're waiting for Mata to respond, thanks for the offer of everybody going visiting your Utah booth for a composite guitar. That sounds really cool. The same one that Bryce Larson will be playing tomorrow, before the Good Day session at the CAMX. Fantastic. Okay, that sounds cool. I suppose for me, one comment just going back to the standards and compliance issues, I've always found it interesting that it's a really great place for an SME, a new player in the market, to go to one of those committees, to show up and to let people you're coming to play in their backyard and to find out what's going on there. Because if you're not at least listening to, if not involved in shaping the standard, you could be excluded for good or for bad reason. So it's important to understand those things. And with composites, especially a sector we're all involved and interested in, there's so many new materials out there. There are new processes and applications. We see all the new thermoplastics versus thermoset versus thermo, etc., and all the new fibers and resins involved. There's a lot of complication to some of those, but they have great solutions. But you do have to conform to some manufacturing standards, some duties issues, but especially if you cross into a new sector, and we're all looking to diversify right now, if you cross into a new sector such as consumer from industrial, that's a whole different issue, and you need to understand that. So I know we've only got a few minutes left as I suddenly look at my clock. Has anybody got anything else they'd like to share, or another question? And by the way, feel free to message me afterward, and I'll try and get back to you if I have an intelligent answer to give. So there's my email down the bottom. I think hopefully you can see it. It's quite simply joe.mannion@eurolink.ie, and have a look at our website too. There's some information up there that might be useful. Eurolink.ie. Okay. You're welcome. Thanks, Elizabeth from Eastman. And to Linda, you're asking, does my company provide cultural guidance? Officially, no, but unofficially, absolutely. It's a really big part of what I do. I always find it interesting when I bring my clients from the US, especially over to Europe, and they're shocked or horrified or worried when they see a meeting, especially in Southern Europe, taking 3 or 4 times longer than it took back in the US or in Germany. And you just have to understand that that's the way things might be, that there'll be a different type of question, there'll be a different type of relationship, and just like you'd have a different meeting in Texas versus maybe Massachusetts. So yeah, but even more so. Europe is a great collection of different cultures. Somehow we keep a lid on it all and try and play on an even field. But yeah, to answer the question, yes, it's part of what I do. And any good person working with you and for you should understand cultural differences to guide yourself through that, whether it's going to Japan or Europe or etc. So I hope that answered your question. Okay. I think we're nearly done, Brianna, unless there's something I'm missing here in the chats. Don't be shy, guys. I'm only the guy in the chair here, like I say. If you were learning for everybody else, let them know. Somebody else here is asking me, hi Sam, do I help people to secure business loans internationally? I've been involved in raising finance, both private, but also from state bodies as well, both in Europe and in the US. So yeah, I get involved in that. Good question, to Linda. Have I started traveling by air yet? No, but I will in the next 10 days. So I've been waiting for the right event to actually still be physically taking place to tie a business trip around it. So yeah, I hope I'm going to be in Germany in about 10 days time. All going well. It's very strange for me. I'm a guy who takes anywhere between 50 and 80 flights a year. So it'd be great to be back on the road. Yeah, correct. It's really strange to be home-based all the time. Do I work with the commercial service in Europe? I know a lot of the team there and they know me. Several of my clients, of course, are supported with various contributions from the US commercial service, which is invaluable to us and to them as they go into new markets for projects or for taking a stand at an exhibition, whether it's part of the US pavilion at an exhibition like the JEC or the Hanover Messe. But in other cases, it's simply some financial support or human resource support the US commercial service gives us or gives our clients for looking at standards or something like that, or packaging or logistics. So yeah, great. It's a great organization. And the same in each of the countries in Europe. I've worked with support bodies in France, UK, Ireland, etc. With my clients if they're based there. So great. All right, great to see a little bit of interaction in the chat between a few of you. That's super. So I see you can't see it, guys. Elizabeth from Eastman saying that you do, and it's mostly outside of Europe, so Mexico, South America. So that means where you're selling to already. Okay. How's your business in Europe, and how is it affected at the moment with not being able to travel? Everybody. A question to everybody for that one.
I can state on behalf of Eastman, this is Elizabeth, that our business has been maintained in Europe. What I'm eager to see is that more people are willing to communicate with all the WebEx tools.
Yeah.
I've had more virtual meetings over the last 6 months than I have in 10 years. And honestly, people more willing to accept those meetings because we previously tried to do it and people seemed afraid to speak on the camera, afraid of their English speaking skills and my terrible German skills. But I'm very encouraged by what we've seen over the last few months.
Yeah, that's a really good observation and something I agree with. At the beginning of this whole lockdown, I found it very interesting that people, of course, because they're working from home, or maybe they're in a country where they were allowed to go to the office, they had a lot less meetings physically happening. So they had a bit more time to talk to you, especially if you had some news to share. I find that a very helpful part of what I do, to disarm perhaps people when I approach them, is to be able to share information from not necessarily their competitors, but maybe from other countries or sectors that they haven't heard. And we all like that, especially as we're now more home office based and traveling a lot less than we did. So yeah, it's a really good thing. And it's great that some people, as you say, Elizabeth, weren't using technology or Zoom are now embracing it. And I hope there's more of that because it makes it really, really easier, much easier. Yeah, Andrew, I hear you. Some territories, unfortunately, if they don't have access to reliable or consistent bandwidth, and it makes it a bit tricky. But, you know, we have the traditional phone calls and emails as well, at least, if we can't do Zooms for long periods. And I have to say again, thanks to the CAMX organizers for doing something like this, Campfire, as well as the other sessions they're doing. I sat in on some great sessions. I was allowed to sit in a little bit yesterday on the Women in Composites Campfire, and that's really great. And I'll give a shout out to their new organization, compositewomen.com, who are looking to encourage female engineers and managers and leaders of the future. I think that's great, having 2 daughters myself. So that was great. And Advanced Composites in Sport that Matt from Already Manufacturing did was also fantastic. So, hey, there's a really positive thing that's come out of all this use.
And Joe, this is Brianna from CAMX. Just thank you again for your time. This was an excellent session. Like I said, this will be recorded or was recorded. And so we'll make sure to circulate that for those that did miss this live session. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Brianna. Thanks for making it happen.